Well, welcome to Around with Stocky and a chance to delve into the sporting lives of two young men who've been on a remarkable sporting voyage. Because when you think 6 years ago they had to deal with the very sudden death of their father, the international show jumper Team Stockdale, but here they are in the middle of what we think is a summer. But anyway, we're embarking on very different sporting careers. But on the moment, in Joe's case, that's Joe Stockdale, a chance possibly to be going to the Olympics at the end of July. And Mark is now embarking on a road that could lead to him becoming a professional golfer. He's at university in America on a golf scholarship. And I'm delighted to say both Joe and Mark are here to talk about their respective voyage to this point, on the cusp of an Olympic position for Joe. And, well, the very competitive golf professional world lies before Mark. So, Joe, I'm going to start with you because obviously yours has been more high profile. You've been to World Championships. But when you look back to the end of November 2018 and the sad loss of your dear dad, Tim, could you imagine that you are now on the cusp of maybe making an Olympic team?
No, is probably the honest answer, the deep down answer. But, you always stand there and you sort of have dreams to yourself and you think, oh, what that could possibly happen. That could be, something that's available. But it seemed so far away at the time. To be here in this position, looking back, like you say, it was actually a crazy, completely ridiculous decision for me to even start riding as a career, based on what I'd done before and where I was at. So I'm just lucky that it's paid off to this point so far.
And Mark, you were just in the early teens, so that's a difficult time for all of us at that stage. Yeah. Obviously, having to deal, and I think you hadn't picked up a golf club too long. What was going through your mind then? Was it a career trying to go into sport, or what were you thinking?
I think at that time it was just a form of enjoyment for me. I was always one of those kids growing up that I had to do everything. I did acting, I did the drums, I played all different types of sport, and I sort of did them for a bit at a time and then move on to the next thing. And at that point, I'd been probably 18 months into playing golf, and still at that stage, you're very, very new to it. You learn as you go along. And I think I just got a bit addicted to trying to improve. And basically through that period, I think it was my way of dealing with things almost. It was like you've got so much time to yourself. I could think and clear my head that I just loved going out to the golf course practicing because it just took my mind away from everything. And I channeled everything into my golf. And I think it's why I've got to the stage I am now, because it became a very, very important part of my life at that time. And it's now just grown as it's gone over the past few years, but never would have thought I'd sort of be at this stage then. It was a plan, but it's not something that you go and think, this is definitely what I do. When you're 14, you're not thinking this is my career.
Did you ride at all?
When I was much younger, I was never very good at it. Never really, got into it. Did pony club and loved that. Loved the socializing more than anything. And when I got a rosette, that was a little bonus. But
bobbling about on a back of one.
Yeah, I didn't look very athletic when I was sat on a horse. That was sort of my thing, is sort of bouncing along, and basically I would just point, kick, and hope. So it was never really my forte. So
I presume you didn't like falling off or something like that. It hurts.
Yeah, no, it definitely does hurt. I was lucky to avoid a lot of bad falls, but I think I had one which just wasn't even that bad, but just scared me a little bit, and I was like, no, this isn't for me, and stood well clear.
And Joe, in your case, you were playing some pretty decent cricket, but you were doing a bit more riding sort of in 2018. How serious were your cricketing dreams back then?
Oh, the cricket was forefront of my mind from the start. It was never a doubt that is what I wanted to do. That is everything I did up to that point, was to try and play cricket. It was my passion. It was what I was obsessed with. And really, I got into that through Dad as well, as he loved the cricket, and we'd stay up, we'd sit and watch the Ashes together. We watched all the cricket on TV. We go to the games, and he really enjoyed coming to watch my cricket games as well. And I think that, I actually, if you'd asked me even 6 months before what I was going to do, before I decided to take on the riding, I would have said cricket, without even a shadow of a doubt in my head. That was what I wanted to do. Whether I would have got there or not, that's a whole different thing. But yeah, weirdly, that had always been the plan, was to do the cricket, and that took a very quick U-turn, and all of a sudden I started riding a bit more.
But in that 2018, you were trying to juggle both. But when your dad was diagnosed with cancer, sort of almost out of the blue, your riding was going quite well at that stage, wasn't it? So you were starting to make a bit of an impact.
Well, it was one of those things. Is actually, I'd had an injury. I'd had a recurring injury that kept coming along that year. And I was sort of just making my second team debut at the county club. And I was just starting to, that really important bit where you're just starting to make a bit of a breakthrough, and had this injury that was driving me mad. And I sort of I played through it, kept going. And then I finally got signed for a club out in Australia. So I was going to go off and play cricket in Australia. And then unfortunately, that injury then finally, it was the last straw, and it just went. And that was just before I was about to leave. I was literally getting on a flight. My flights were booked. I was getting on, I think, a week later. And we went and got everything scanned, got it looked at, and they basically said there's no chance you can go and play, or you're going to go out, but there's no chance you can bowl a ball for 6 months. But they said actually the riding's not going to impact it too much, and so that's why I started to ride a bit more. It's actually not necessarily a choice, but it was one of those things. Well, I can't play cricket. What else am I going to do? Because we're not very good at sitting still in our family. We like to be doing something or be doing some sort of sport. So I said, well, okay, I'll do a bit more of the riding, and that's why I started to ride a bit more. And I was lucky in that period that I had a bit of success, and that's kind of what even gave me the idea that this was a possibility as a career path.
And when your dad was diagnosed, what do you remember of that time and having to deal with sort of compartmentalize everything and work out, well, what is going on? This is just, it just brings the family to a sort of crushing halt, and just wondering, what are we going to do, and how is the world going to manage? What were you thinking, Mark, at that time, or is it all just a bit of a blur?
For me, if I'm honest with you, I think because I was that sort of age, a lot of it got blocked out for me. I remember a lot of the conversations that me and my dad had, and the plans we made and everything like that, and how strong me, Joe and Mum were as a group at the time, that we bounced off each other to keep moving because of how busy we are, because of the fact it was like, okay, this is horrible, horrible situation, but what do we need to do to come out the end of it okay? And we basically just used each other to bounce off. And I think that's what got us through, is that us as a group, we're very, very strong. And even now, I was at a tournament this week, and I'm there on the phone to Joe after round one, speaking to her about what I'm going to do the next day. Mum was there with me. I'm speaking to her, and it's been the same case since that time. Is that we use each other to speak things through and get an idea of what we need to do. And because of that situation, I think it brought us really, really close together, and we realised how much we need each other to succeed. And that was the main thing for me, is that I realised how important family is as a group for us.
And Joe, I know at the time you went to the Horse of the Year show just before your father died, just after he was diagnosed. You had a pretty good show by all accounts. When did you finally make the decision? Was it right before your dad died that you can commit to riding? How did that bit of your life work out? Because presumably there was a big business at home that your dad and your mother were running, and you were still in your teenage years, I think, or where you just turned 20. You're suddenly thinking, what the heck's going on here? When did you make that call to say, right, I'm going to somehow make this riding work for Dad?
Well, that was basically, it was that Sunday of Horse of the Year show. Like I say, I had a good show there. Wasn't really expected to go well. Wasn't expecting any results there. I had a win on the first day. I jumped clear in the Grand Prix on the Sunday. And it was, I mean, I must say, when you're asking Mark there, thinking back, for me, I have a weird memory of it all. It kind of all seems such a blur. But I do remember getting home from Horse of the Year show on Sunday night. I went and saw Dad. And I was showing him, because he actually couldn't watch the live stream when I was jumping around. So he had David Rogers on the phone, and David was watching. I think David was actually watching the timing, and he said, right, 30 seconds in, he's still clear. Oh, he's still clear. And it was they were so surprised. They actually thought something was wrong with the timing, in that they didn't actually think I was going to jump clear in the Grand Prix. So it was basically, I got back from that show, went and had a chat, and he said, look, actually, this could be a chance. And I said, well, To be honest, I thought the job was easy after that. I thought I've been to my first show, I've won a class, I've jumped there in the Grand Prix. I don't know what all the fuss is about. I mean, I couldn't have been much more wrong about that, because it was a bit of a it was a bit of a reality check after then. But that was it. It was literally one show gave me the confidence to say, and gave Dad the confidence to say to the owners and the people we had around us to say, you know, this is a chance. Would you support me? Would you sort of, if I did make that decision, what's going to happen? Because before that, the only thing we'd had in our minds was, you know, selling up the yard, selling the horses, what we do with the place. Do I then try and get myself fit and then carry on with the cricket? What we did. So it was literally down to that one show that we sort of made a decision off of that.
So, I mean, that good round in the Grand Prix, that's the moment, because that seems a, quirk of fate, because it could have gone pear-shaped.
Yeah, completely. I think if I had one down or two down, we probably wouldn't have done it, which is a crazy thing to think about. But like I say, looking back, we were completely bonkers to even decide that I could ride, because I've watched them around. So back then, I wasn't great, to be honest with you. I was actually pretty poor. So it was pretty mental that we did what we did. But like I say, it seems to have worked out so far.
And Mark, do you have any memories of Joe in that time? Were you, as a teenager, knowing your dad was ill and watching him, what were you thinking?
Well, I think I was still holding on to the fact that me and Joe, when Joe was probably 15, 16, and I was a few years younger, we were talking about how we're both going to play for England cricket for each other. So I was like, damn, our chance is gone. Like, this is very frustrating for me. I'm thinking, I thought he was going to be a cricketer. All my friends knew him as the older brother, as a really good cricketer. And I was thinking, oh no, he's going to the Ponzi horses again. Like, I've dealt with this for the last 14 years, and we have to carry on for another 60.
Mark thought he was going to get a few nice winters in Australia, watching the Ashes.
Yeah.
Then he's got cold and windy Addington on a late Saturday night, middle of the winter. You know, so he's drawn the short straw.
Yeah, I know more about cricket than I do the horses. Like, every time I go watch a horse show, all I know is just if the fence falls over, it's not very good. And the cricket, at least, I know what's going on a bit more. So,
and if you're watching your brother compete, though, Mark, when you see him, say he was at the World Championships, what's your emotions? I mean, do you ride every fence, or do you think, what do you think? Because obviously you know him better than anybody else. Can you see what's going on?
Well, I'm just there. I'm trying to not ride every fence. I'm just trying to keep very level-headed and what the result will be. But I do feel a bit anxious when he goes in, because I know if it doesn't go well, then it's going to be a rough afternoon for everyone around him, because he won't forget about it. It's going to be, why did I do that for the rest of the day? Because I know I'm the exact same. So it's that same feeling of wanting him to go well as when I'm competing. It's a very, very similar feeling of, like, you want the same things for each other. So yeah, when I watch him, there is definitely a bit of anxiousness and nervousness about, hoping it goes well. But at the end of the day, I know I've got trust and faith, and I know he's doing the right things. So there's no worry. There's no negativity. It's just, you just want it to go well, because for me, I want to go well with myself. So I know he's thinking the exact same thing.
And we want to be able to celebrate afterwards.
When you were competing at Hoyes in 2018, you weren't very good. But then you had a support network. I know that the funnels helped you, and lots of people helped you. At what stage in this last 6 years have you suddenly thought, I am actually worthy to be riding at the top table? Look, you've been to when was that period that you suddenly thought, right, I can do this? I'm a proper show jumper now.
Well, it goes up and down. If I have a good couple of results, all of a sudden I think, do you know what? I'm actually getting the hang of this job. I'm finally just starting to figure this out. And then you have a very, very steep back to reality, and you get slattered, or you come off, or you have a terrible show, and you go, actually, I've got no idea what I'm doing again. So it can vary week to week. At the minute, I'm sort of thinking, do you know what? I'm starting to figure this job out. But then I know soon, it could be this weekend, I'll have something will happen. I go, do you know what? I have no idea what happened there. so it depends what day you ask me.
Okay, right. Well, at the moment, it looks to be going all right. So presumably you feel all right. But say the World Championships, when you suddenly have, it doesn't go to begin with, and I know you were down on yourself, weren't you, after that? But there was what changed, what got you through that, and were able to contribute to be part of a medal-winning team?
Well, I think a lot of that comes down to listening to Dad, really. He was someone that he bounced back from stuff so well. And okay, it wasn't like it didn't hurt. At the time it hurt so badly. When you've had a bad result, things haven't gone how you expected to. But everything he always spoke to me and Mark about was, our resilience, how tough we are, how we can come back, and being determined to make it right in the end. We've watched all the Rocky movies about 1,000 times over, because that used to be his thing. Is he used to say, if he's had a bad show on the Sunday before the Grand Prix, he'll stick Rocky 2 on, and that just sorts him out, and then he's ready to go for the Grand Prix then. So that's usually our thing. But I think, from a young age, he's always said the same thing to me. When I was playing the cricket, whatever sport it was for me and Mark, if we've had a bad day, I've had a shocker on the field playing the cricket, I always said, well, okay, it's not about that. Think about that. And it's not, we don't let go of things easily. Me and Mark are exactly the same. If we have a bad result, it haunts us. We don't sleep. It's just, you can't help but think about that last fence. What could you have done differently? All these things. But it's about being able to take that, build on it. Right, what went wrong? How can I fix it? And then move on and put a plan in place so you're moving forward a little bit. And I suppose that was going through my head a lot at the Worlds. That's probably the lowest I've ever felt after a round, is after that middle day. Basically made one mistake and paid for it. But my main focus then was, okay, I want to come back and I want to prove that was a one-off, and people can rely on me to bounce back. If I have a bad result, they'll know I'm going to come back stronger. And I think throughout my riding career, that's something I've thought about a lot. And I've had those situations a few times now where I've had a bad show. I jumped my first 5-star Nations Cup, and okay, on paper it probably wasn't a disaster, but for me, for what I built up in my head, it was a disaster of where I wanted to be. And then we went home, and the next week, then she jumped clear in the Grand Prix at Windsor. My second 5-star. So I think that was one thing I always thought in my head. I want to, if I have a bad result, it's going to hurt, but I want to come back better. I want to be able to resolve that, in the coming weeks in that next day. And I think that's that determination that he'd sort of instilled in us from such a young age is probably the biggest thing that came out. And it's probably the biggest asset for me as a rider or sportsman. Or Mark the same. We like to think that we're not those sort of people. We get in a rut, we're going to find a way out. We're going to try and work a solution out.
And Mark, in your kit, there are similarities between, because both sports have rounds, right? So Joe's been talking about bad rounds, good rounds. Golf, I know, is most of it's played between the ears, because I bet all your fellow college students can all bomb the ball 320 yards without even trying, right?
Yeah.
But you've got to step up onto that first tee, and it's what's going on between the ears. It seems like both of you, whatever your dad put into both of you, was right. You've got to fight hard, and it's what goes on between the ears that's going to make the difference. Is that something you take to your sport?
Yeah, no, it is. I mean, so it was actually about midway through last season, and looking back, it's like one bad event, and I was playing good. You have one bad event, and I don't know what it is with golf or if it's sport in general. It scrambles you, and you think that you need to then reinvent the wheel, where actually you don't. And I went to the next tournament. I was on the driving range. And I was there trying to figure stuff out and playing around with things. And I was there just thinking about what Dad would say. And I got a Sharpie out and actually wrote his sort of famous quote, "There's no such word as can't," on my wrist. So then the next day, get to the golf course and playing. And before every shot, I look down and I see "there's no such word as can't." And something about that statement for me, no matter how bad my day's going, it makes me sort of lift up and feel good about myself. And I did that for the rest of the season, played really, really good. And every event I went to, it just felt like I was going to win. It was, you're here, you've done the hard work. There's no reason why you can't win. And it's something which I will always remember is every event I go to, you've got to have that confidence of that you've done the hard work. There is no reason why you are not able of winning this week. And so that's something with golf, is that it's so difficult because you think you figured it out, and then you might actually be even technically better than you were, but you're just not performing to the same level for so many different reasons. And that's what the hard part is of it. But for me, it's just about taking that confidence every week, resetting. And as long as, even if it's a bad week, even if you have the worst week you may have had, if you think you've learned something from it, then I will just take that as a positive.
Joe, you're still at home. your mum's around you all the time. Mark, you've gone off to America, and that can be a lonely existence. We know, okay, just recently going over, see even seasoned pros go over to America and find it a very alien environment. I refer to Bob McIntyre. He took time. Okay, he's gone and won, but he struggled. You've gone to a university away from the comfort zone of a very close-knit family and the bond that clearly you all three have. How did you cope with that transition, both mentally and actually thinking this is going to, did you have to dig deep, or was it relatively easy for you?
I would say it was relatively easy because it was a new challenge. And for me, because it was a new challenge, you take a clear mindset, and I was excited to go. As soon as I knew I was going to America a year earlier, everything was just, I want to get there. I want to start, because you get in such a good routine, and all it is golf. There's no other distraction. It's the main focus of your day. And every day I would have a phone call. Every 2 days I'd have a phone call with Mum and Joe and let them know what I've done for the day. And they would keep me in check of, doing the right things and all of this, and keeping up to date with what's going on at home here through a group chat, just seeing photos of what's going on a daily basis. It was very similar. It was basically like I just sort of taken that step of, okay, this is now, I'm setting up on my own now. This is now full my career, what I'm doing. I'm in complete control of it. And for me, I absolutely love that feeling of, there's nothing which is going to influence me now. This is just only positive energy going into my career, and every day is going to be, how can I get better than I was before? Whether it's learning, whether it's going to the gym, whether it's practicing, whatever it is, just you feel like you're improving every single day, and I've loved every minute of it.
And Joe, the show jumping schedule is unrelenting. Both of you have taken sports that when you become a professional, I mean, you are on the road, Mark, all the time. You are now, because you're going to be going to various amateur championships. Yep. But Joe, it is an eye-watering schedule your sports had. And to suddenly think from 6 years ago, you're now running a business that there's a lot of pressure. It's not a cheap sport to be involved in. You're looking always for the next superstar horse to sort of keep the momentum going. How hard have you found trying to focus on improving as a rider to avoid too many of those bad days you talk about, but also making sure that there's a viable business so that you can still be doing this in maybe 20 years' time, if you can think that far ahead?
Yes, yeah, it is. Like I say, it's very tough. And a lot of, it's a tough struggle to really make it work in this industry, especially with the times how they've been in the last couple of years. Things that have changed with the travel getting more expensive, and really just the cost of running the yard's probably doubled in the last couple of years. So yeah, it's difficult to manage the business side and the riding side. But I think I just have to be very organised about how I structure my day, so that I give myself time to sort of cover all bases. Because it'd be very easy, it'd be lovely to just get up in the morning and just think, okay, I've got to ride these 8 horses and just work away and just focus purely on your riding. But unfortunately, in this day, you can't really do that. You've got to have a little bit of a business head on. But I must say, I've had some great support from the owners and sponsors around me. I couldn't have done it without them. And really, they've been the biggest asset for me, is having those owners that are there to support me and really help me get the horsepower that you need to stay at a top level. Because like you said, that's kind of the most important thing for us, is making sure we've got good quality horses to be riding and going out and competing with. So I'm very thankful for them and everything they've done for me in my career, because there probably was a period as well where there was a bit of faith they had in me, when necessarily I wasn't showing them the results that they needed. But I'm liking to think that we're getting closer and closer to having those more regularly. So yeah, it is difficult to manage, and you've got to have that sort of side to it, because it'd be lovely. I always say Mum likes to keep pets as the horses. We've got a couple of horses out in the far field, all retired ones, where they're never going to earn us any money, but she likes to keep them because they've got sentimental value. So we do need to think a little bit more nowadays about the dealing side, and making smart decisions, really making sure that horses aren't making the cut, or if you get a good opportunity with a horse where you could got a chance to sell, then you do it. We're not quite in a position yet where we can keep everything and then keep them all away until they retire, but we're hopefully going to get there at some point. But like I say, really the main thing for us is those owners, those sponsors, and the people, that team behind me, help me to get where we are now.
And obviously, to both of you, this question you can answer in your own time. Does Mum know best?
We let her think she does.
Yeah, I was gonna say like
You best,
most,
you best
most of the
stay on
time, yeah.
side. Don't cross any lines. Just stay on side, nod your head, behave
Yeah.
well. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say like for mum, mum's role for me and Joe's slightly different because of course with the horses she did it all with dad. She'll act to Joe like she does know best because she's been there, done that. And then those two I definitely go and say are a bit more like back and forth, debating different viewpoints. For me, it's more like
Mark is the favourite child, is what he's trying to say. He's there. I go away for weeks on end in Holland and all this, and do I, is she worried about me? No. Every time I'm home, every day, oh, let's call Mark. Let's check how Mark's doing. Oh, look what Mark's doing. She's definitely a favourite child, and me and Mum just then have our debates. Some people probably see them as arguments. They're actually are just debates, but we kind of have our daily debate on what we're going to do with what, and yeah, usually that works quite well. It's quite a good way of us discussing it together because we both play devil's advocate. If I say an idea, she'll say yes, but what about this? And I'll say, yeah, but that doesn't matter. And then we kind of end up in a bit of a back and forth, or vice versa. So we have our own way about working things out. But yes, she's a big support for me on the yard. And like you say, so great that she's been there and done it with Dad before. Even the other day, actually, we were out and I was just trying to think of a few different gymnastic exercises for a few of the horses. And then she could remember this grid from probably 30 years ago that she did with Dad. And I said, oh, go on, we'll stick it out and do a try. And it was just bang on. It was just the job. So she's definitely got a wealth of knowledge there that I can tap in for me. I'm not sure she's going to help Mark with his golf swing that much.
I was just about to say that's where the difference is in the golf. Like for me, I'm figuring the golf as we go because it's a completely new venture. So Mum for me is more of like devil's advocate. I'll go to her and say, look, this is what I'm thinking, and then she may not know what the right answer will be, but she'll just go and give me the opposite, and then I'll have to think it through a bit more. Because we're figuring out as we go along with the golf world. It's not like we've known how it's been going for the last 20 years. Every day we learn something new about it.
And Joe, almost sounds like the sort of conversations you're having with your mum is exactly the kind of conversations your dad would have been having about 100%. Horses. So in a way, you're sort of now, it's no change for your mum. She's just doing what she's always done. Just she's got to learn about golf now. But presumably she knew about cricket a little bit. But and I know she's a big sports fan. But I mean, has that been a comfort to all three of you in a way that you are able to sort of talk it through and no grudges, just get on with life and have had to deal with, when you think back to November 2018, that sort of moment, were you all in a positive frame of mind, knowing we can go forward because Dad has made sure we're mentally all right, even though it was such a shock that he went so quickly?
Yeah, he definitely instilled a bit of toughness in all of us. He definitely, put a thick skin on us all, one way or another. I spent hours out working with Dad. I'd always go out in the afternoons and do all the odd jobs. You definitely earn a bit of a thick skin from there, trying to work with him and hand him the right tools. And you hand him the wrong size spanner, you get a good telling. So he prepared us in one way or another. We didn't know he was doing it, but he did prepare us.
Yeah.
How was he good at golf, Mark?
He wasn't great. He was not naturally gifted at golf. I mean, he had a gammy hand from riding that he could barely grip a club with, and he had the worst slice I've ever seen, and he couldn't get out of a bunker to save him.
If he ended up in the fan, you'd be there till tomorrow. He could not get out of a bunker. No,
he could not do it at all. He had lessons for it, couldn't do it. He was very much just old school, just get the ball rolling on the ground type of thing. So for me, being a young golfer, watching all the guys on TV send it up so high and land it soft and do all of this fancy stuff, I was there trying to copy him, and Dad was like, no, can't do that.
He was teaching Mark the old 7-iron bump and run on the edge of the greens, and Mark's there trying to hit this 60-degree flop shot, that goes 100 yards up and goes 5 yards long. And Mark would be here in the garden, and he'd have we've got an old dovecot in the garden. Mark would be there hitting flop shots over the lip of the dovecot into the middle, and Dad would sit inside with me having a cup of tea and said, I don't know why he's practicing that. I don't know, the 7-iron, the bump and run, the 7-iron, that is just as good. And it's way less risk. And Mark's there giving it big full swing, and it goes a million miles out. And goes,
yeah.
What age did you become a scratch golfer then, Mark? Just
16, I think. when I was 16, I think I got to +1. I think I jumped very quickly from 1 to +1. So I wasn't at scratch for long. I was just above it, and then I got into the plus figures. But yeah, I think about 16. So it was pretty. I picked up the game, I would say, quick. Like, I picked it up late compared to other people who I play against. Most guys have been playing since they're 4 or 5. I first picked up club when I was 12, and by 16 I was off scratch. I picked it up very quick. And then it feels like since then I haven't really moved up very quickly since then, but of course I have. Just that first beginner stage, you can make those big jumps, especially at like a young age. If like I had good coaching around me, I had good practice facilities, and I was able to dedicate a lot of time to it, that you can move very quickly.
And Joe, are you expecting Mark to adopt a sort of quasi-American accent after the college life, or are you going to make sure that he always sounds true to his roots?
No, 100%. He's not. He came back and he was hitting a few slur words, American slur words. I wasn't having that. He was taking out the trash and all this sort of rubbish. I say, stop there right now. If you're going to come in the door, speak properly. We're not having any of that American rubbish,
I'm trying not to, but unfortunately, I do know myself. I'm picking up a few words every now and then, and I'll be speaking with someone. I'll say it and stop and be like, "Why have I just said that? Like, what? I've never said that before in my life."
Well, you are in Arkansas, which is pretty American.
That's pretty down south. Yeah, no, that's pretty down south.
But now, we'll end. Just final questions now. Obviously, Joe, we're recording this just before the Olympic announcement. If you do make the team, what would it mean, and what do you think your dad would say?
It's everything for me. It's everything. It's. I think it's the pinnacle of the sport. He went to the Olympics. It's his biggest achievement, and it was the biggest bragging rights for me as his son to go along and say that Dad's been to the Olympics. He's jumped to the Olympics. So for me to do that, and especially there's a bit of something else. The horse I'm taking was one. Cacharel. We bought her as a 3-year-old, and throughout her career, me and Dad broke her in together, and we watched her all the way through, and we always said that she was going to be an Olympic horse. That's what we say, is it an Olympic horse, or a championship horse for sure. And I said to him when I said that I was going to take up the ride, and I said to him, I'm going to go to the Olympics on Cash. And I think he probably thought, yes, that's a lovely idea. I'm sure that's a nice idea for you to say that, or everyone should dream a little bit. And I think I half said it, half jokingly, not actually thinking we were going to get there. So if I can tick that one off the list, yeah, it doesn't get any better than that, really, does it?
And Mark, you're still a few years behind, but you've been through your first year in American collegiate golf. You've got a big summer in front of you at British Amateur Championships, defending champion at the English Under-25. What are your goals now? Just sort of realistic goals, because eventually you hope to be playing on whichever world tour. There are so many of them now. I don't know which one. But we will keep golf politics out aside. But what are your immediate ambitions to try and make sure that you can fulfill your golfing dreams?
So, of course, I think with any sport, you have like smaller set goals. So for me, I've got goals for the next 2 months. I've got goals for the next year. And so like for me, my biggest aim is over these next 3 years of college, get myself the best prepared I can. So when I leave college, I can leave college and say, I am a professional golfer. I am ready to go to that top level. I'm ready to compete, feeling completely confident in my abilities. So that's the main thing over these next 3 years. That's the biggest goal. And then the big goal for me is I would love to go to Olympics as a golf perspective, because to do that, you've got to be top 3, top 2 golfers in Great Britain, which if I achieve that also means that I'm probably in the top 25, 30 golfers in the world. So for me, an Olympic goal ticks every other goal there is for me in professional golf as a career. So for me, I would also love to do it if me and Joe go to Olympics together, because I think that is a sporting achievement that's never really been done before, is 2 brothers. Of course, Dad went to the Olympics, 2 different sports. That would be very, very cool for me to try and, because I'm very confident in Joe. He's going to go to an Olympics at some point. Hopefully, of course, it's this year, but I have no doubt that over his career, he will go to Olympics. For me, it's, okay, cool. Let's sit down. Let's figure out how we're going to get to that position. in the sport of golf, and that is something that I cannot wait to do. But it's got to start over these next 3 years of college, leaving college at the best capable standard I can be, which I think is a great platform for me. And then from there, you've got a few years to try and get to top player in GB, really.
And I will say, Mark, if you're in the top 25 to 30, you will be earning quite a lot of money. So buying a horse for Joe shouldn't be a problem. So just like Bob McIntyre's paid off his parents' mortgage, you can keep the style that he wants to be accustomed to.
Yeah, no, I think somewhere Joe helped me back with a bit of golf kit a few years ago, which was quite expensive, and he went halves on me because I couldn't afford it. And I think somewhere in the small print they went and said Bentley Continental or something along the lines of that later on in my career. So don't worry.
A few horse investments I've tied him into. There's a contract tucked away. He's signed accidentally at a young age that I'll be cashing in at some point.
Yeah.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure. Joe, I hope it comes true. Next couple of weeks going to be significant. Mark, best of luck with your various tournaments. Fascinating insight. I hope this is the first of many chats that we have over the coming months, but it's been a pleasure to bring you Around with Stocky. You see what we did there? Well, they did there. The boys came up with the title. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to Joe and Mark, and hopefully you can join us soon. But it's been a real pleasure and a real insight into two people embarking on their sporting voyages, as we like to say, and with great success through difficult circumstances. Thank you, lads.
Amazing. Thank you very much.